In May 1982, Formula One and the world of racing lost an icon. Canada's Gilles Villeneuve lost his life in a crash at the Belgian Grand Prix. His death was mourned by his family, his friends, and his fans all around the world who still revere him 40 years later. I'm Tom Clarkson, and in this special episode of F1 Beyond the Grid, you'll hear memories of Gilles Villeneuve from the people who knew him at the peak of his racing career. Jonathan Jacobazzi, his family sponsored Gilles, but their relationship was far deeper.
He was my idol, and since then, till nowadays, he's still my only idol.
René Arnoux, whose battle with Gilles at Dijon in 1979 remains one of the finest pieces of wheel-to-wheel racing in F1 history.
It was the best race in my career because it was between Gilles and me, and between my best friend and me.
Plus two Formula One world champions, Mario Andretti and Jody Scheckter, who was Gilles' friend and Ferrari teammate.
He wanted to be the daredevil of Formula One.
They talk about Gilles the man, Gilles the racer, Gilles the legend, and how his presence is still felt today.
Gilles Villeneuve is next to the nowadays Ferrari drivers. So today we have Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz and Gilles Villeneuve.
So much of Gilles Villeneuve's life was about speed, both on and off the racetrack. When he had to be somewhere, he had a habit of deliberately leaving late so he'd have to drive quickly to get there on time. He was born in 1950 in Berthierville, a small town an hour outside Montreal in Quebec. As a child, he'd ride snowmobiles around the neighborhood for fun with his brother Jacques. His love of speed grew and snowmobile racing came next. Victories and trophies built his reputation as a talented driver with great skill, control, and bravery. The prize money helped fund a move into cars. And it was in 1976, while driving in the Formula Atlantic series, that Villeneuve caught the attention of an F1 star. Gilles raced and beat James Hunt, who'd go on to win the F1 world title that year. Hunt helped convince McLaren to run Villeneuve at the British Grand Prix in 1977. Despite Gilles running as high as fourth on his F1 debut, McLaren decided against making him a permanent driver. And at the same time, Enzo Ferrari was looking for a driver to replace the outgoing Niki Lauda, and Gilles suited him perfectly. Enzo saw him as a talented young racer, but not someone who would become more famous than Ferrari itself. Sponsoring Villeneuve at Ferrari was the Jacobazzi family, who were wine producers. Enzo himself was a big fan of their Lambrusco. That's how Jonathan Jacobazzi first met Gilles. He told me he grew up traveling the racetracks of Europe with his father, and Gilles was in the next-door caravan.
Gilles was special because he was really one of a kind. I was 5 when I met him first, and he was spending a lot of time in my house with my family. And he was really genuine. He was like one of us. He was talking about everything. He was in love with mechanical parts and everything. He was talking about helicopters. He was talking about boats, his experiments he was doing in Canada in his officina, little workshop. And he was also sharing memories with my father about changing engines in his cars and ski-doos. He was looking for speed everywhere.
Tell me about your family's relationship with Gilles.
We had the opportunity, thanks to Enzo Ferrari, to know Gilles from the beginning, because after Niki Lauda left Ferrari, Gilles was asked by Enzo Ferrari to go to Maranello, and the same day my father got a call from Enzo because we were selling our wines in the States already. He asked him to join him to have a meeting with a new Ferrari driver. So my father never heard about anything about Gilles Villeneuve. When he stepped into the room, he met this guy, and Enzo Ferrari said, this is Gilles Villeneuve. is going to be the new driver replacing Niki Lauda. And because you are selling your wines in United States, I give you the opportunity to sell now in Canada. And my father, of course, couldn't refuse this offer from Enzo Ferrari. I mean, it was an offer that you cannot really refuse. So immediately agreed with Gilles Villeneuve, and they said, okay, let's do it. And they decided that day to have the famous Jacobazzi on the chest of the overalls.
And how did the relationship between your family and him develop over the subsequent years?
It became really a friendship because I remember very well that we were traveling around Europe in our school breaks, me and my brothers with my family. And we were driving, going around with a caravan, and always we were parking the caravan next to Gilles once in the paddock because we were following Formula One. So we went to Digione, we went to Zandvoort, we went to Hockenheim, Silverstone, of course Monza, and Imola. It was really nice period, so we became really friends. In the end, they were always moments to share. My mom was washing the overalls with our underpants, in me and my brother. So she was also sewing the patches on the overalls and changing the position sometimes two times. And I remember once that she took, because my father asked her, my father wasn't happy about the dimension of the Jacobazzi patch on the chest of the overall. So one night they decided to change it with a bigger one. And nobody had really saw the difference the next day. And my father was always thinking to put a bigger one every time. So it was really, really a nice time we spent together.
What was life like on the road with Villeneuve? I mean, I'm just imagining you're in a paddock somewhere. Was it barbecues in the evening together, or was he quite introverted when he was racing?
No, to tell you the truth, we weren't eating together. I mean, he was eating with the mechanics sometimes, or he was eating with his family, and then he was coming into our caravan, and then we had discussions about everything. I remember that before going to bed, I was listening to what they were saying, and because Gilles became my idol since day one, I had this opportunity to know him well. And I was catching my sleep, listening him, telling my father he knew about his new performance with the new toys that he was buying, the helicopter and the boat. And I always dreamt that I wanted to go there, but with him. But I never had the opportunity. And for what I heard later on in my life, probably this is something that I have to consider this. Like positive things, considering how he was driving around, with his cars and piloting the helicopters.
Gilles certainly looked for adrenaline at every opportunity. Mario Andretti, 1978 F1 world champion, told me about the time he and Villeneuve went out on the water together.
Nothing that we've ever done was conventional. We're in Austria at Klagenfurt on a lake, and we're doing the parasail. And so I said, Jill, I said, you want to do a parasail, tandem? So we did a tandem, and everything that we did was awkward because he tried to spin this thing around in such a way that it was quite dangerous. But, that was his style, and he was all, okay, that's what we do. And then when we dropped off, we're supposed to drop off, at one at a time. Now we drop on top of each other, trying to kill each other by the time we hit the water. All of that. So, what a guy. What a guy.
Mario, when I say the name Gilles Villeneuve, what do you think?
I smile, quite honestly. And the reason for that is since the first minute that I met him, when he actually had the opportunity to drive a McLaren, I think at Watkins Glen, he was so nonchalant and typical of his character. And, in the sense I say, isn't he even a bit nervous? And that was Gilles.
If you're stuck in the cycle of trying to pay off old debt, but finding it difficult to manage multiple balances and due dates each month, applying for a personal loan might be the answer you're looking for. With a personal loan, you'll usually find that they have lower interest rates than credit cards do. And what's great is it will allow you to consolidate all of your debt, leaving you with just one due date and interest rate to keep on top of each month, making it a much simpler way to manage your debt in the long run. Credit Karma can help you find the best personal loan option for you. By using your credit data, Credit Karma is able to find loan offers that are personalized to you. It quickly draws up a list of all the personal loan offers that might be suitable, so you don't need to spend hours researching different options on the internet. Better still, it even shows you your chances of approval, so if you find the right one for you, you can apply with confidence. Comparing loan offers on Credit Karma is 100% free and won't affect your credit score, but it could save you money. Ready to apply? Head to creditkarma.com/loan offers to see personalized offers. Go to creditkarma.com/loan offers to find the loan for you. That's creditkarma.com/loan offers. On track, confidence was not a problem for Gilles. In his first full season, 1978, he showed himself to be an F1 star in the making. He scored his first podium, and then in front of his home fans in Montreal, a breakthrough victory in the final race of the year.
Villeneuve wins, and 100,000 cheering Canadians go wild with delight at the first ever Grand Prix win by a Canadian in, of all places, Canada.
In 1979, Villeneuve's second season with Ferrari, he struck up a close friendship with one of his rivals, René Arnoux, the Frenchman who'd just joined Renault.
When I see him the first time, I think it was in 79 when I started in Formula One, and he was driving for Ferrari, I was driving for Renault, and suddenly he said, Gilles said to me, René, you go with me to eat Italian food in Ferrari, and the next day, this was Friday in Ferrari, and the next day was Gilles go with me to eat French food with Renault. And we start suddenly like that, and it was we continue in the same, always in the same condition in each weekend to eat always together on Friday and Saturday, and sometime on Sunday too before the race. But before the race, you stay in your motorhome for the condition of the race. But these 2 days was really fantastic, because for me was very, very nice guys, nice men, and I appreciate each minute all together.
Did you always talk about racing, or would you talk about other things as well?
It's the same, because when you eat on the Grand Prix, it's normal. At the end, you speak always about racing, and but I see Gilles in Paris, in Italy, and in each part of the world, and I spend really a good time each time when we stay all together, and for me, was a fantastic guy, because he is not in the middle. You love Gilles, or you don't love Gilles. You have not half, and for me it was a very, very good person, because he was like that.
René saw his friend Gilles win 2 of the opening 4 races of 79. Villeneuve's championship challenge was alive, and his main rival that season was his Ferrari teammate, Jody Scheckter.
I knew him as a very honest, very honorable, nice guy. And people didn't see that side of him. We were great mates. I don't remember ever having a bad word between us. He's a nice guy, he's an honest guy, he's an honorable guy, rather than he's a great racing driver and that, because that's what I saw and let's say respected as a person, rather than he was a quick racing driver or not.
You were teammates with Gilles for 2 years, so let's start talking about the racing driver. What were his greatest strengths behind the wheel?
I think he was very fast. He was serious, although it didn't look like from the outside. He worked hard at becoming the best driver he could, but he had some weaknesses. He wanted to be the daredevil of Formula One. So he wanted to get the fastest lap. He wanted everybody to think he was what. I went from Monaco up to Maranello with him, and I said, "Listen, you behave yourself when I'm going with you." And we get fine until we get a kilometre outside of Maranello, and then he's doing wheel spin and what's the names and stuff like it. He loved that side of it. Monza, when we were going for the championship, we were practicing. I think we did 2 days. He was putting on qualifying tyres after qualifying tyres, and in the headlines, Gilles record everything. I put on the hardest tyres and just did the chassis and did the stuff like this, and I out-qualified him. I had a better car probably than him in the race. But that's what gave me some comfort.
So he was a showman?
Yes, very much so.
In the racing car and outside as well?
He loved that idea that he was the daredevil, and that's what he portrayed. And I think he was quicker than me in race form, but he made mistakes. So did he keep that little margin? No. I think he neglected the car more than I did. And it paid off in different areas.
Let's talk about Gilles' relationship with the team. Was he closer to the Scuderia than you?
Enzo Ferrari loved him and respected me, and respected him as well. But really, the old man liked Gilles. He spoke Italian, I didn't, but also he liked the flamboyant daredevil, put it all on the line, or whatever.
Why do you think he was so revered, so idolized by the Tifosi?
I think his attitude was pushing out all the time, trying to do the fastest lap rather than win the race.
Are you being flippant when you say that? Or do you think there were occasions where he would put fastest lap ahead of winning the race?
That's exactly what I'm saying. He would put fastest lap or do a overtake that was spectacular than winning the race. Certainly than winning the championship.
So often in F1 today, you'll hear race engineers telling drivers to reduce their pace to prevent mechanical failures or to hold position and not risk an overtake to score just a few World Championship points. Those things were not in Villeneuve's playbook. It was said that he didn't know how to drive slowly. Mario Andretti says that was what made him so special.
Gilles was quick, and that's why Mr. Ferrari loved him so much, because his heart was right there in front of the car, flat out, 110%. And he could have destroyed every race car that he ever drove for Mr. Ferrari. He would have loved him just the same. There's no way he could fault him for being so aggressive, so exciting. I mean, it's just one of a kind.
You really are smiling when you tell these stories about him.
Yes, because it's true. I mean, this is exactly the way I feel. Yeah.
His aggressive driving might have won Villeneuve fans, but it sometimes saw him give up precious World Championship points. At the 1979 Dutch Grand Prix, while leading the race but pushing flat out, Gilles spun, damaging his tyres. A tyre then blew, but rather than drive slowly back to the pits, change tyres and rejoin the race to try and score some points, Gilles continued to push flat out. The shredded tyre destroyed the rear of the car, and what started as a puncture ended up causing his retirement. Jody Scheckter was world champion that year. Gilles was second, just 4 points behind. But Villeneuve's 1979 season is also remembered for his part in one of F1's all-time great battles. At the French Grand Prix, Gilles and René Arnoux banged wheels, fighting over second and third places.
Gilles was in his life, private, on a track. When he was driving, he drive at the maximum. He drives his life at the maximum, 100%. each laps. I said always about these battles, it was possible, is my opinion, between Gilles and me. Why? First things, I know that Gilles don't make a bad mistake for me, and he know exactly the same. I don't want to make a mistake for him because at this speed and at this time, 5 laps before the end of the race in Dijon, maybe it was really dangerous. But I know that Gilles, it's serious, and he don't want to make a mistake about me, and the same for him, about him. And at this time we start. He have a problem with, like I said before, with the tire, with the brake, and I have a full pressure problem of the fuel. We arrived at this time 5 laps before the end to have exactly to have the same time for each laps. And I tried to finish second. I finished third, but he tried to finish second, and he finished second with the condition of this car. But during this war on the track in Dijon, it's very honest. It's not a bad things, not etc. And after, when we finish on a flag to finish the finish flag, we have the podium, and everything said, oh, these 2 guys now it's a war also on the podium. But then he take my hand, and we have a big smile when we finish the race on the podium. It was really exciting. After the race, somebody said we go to see on a big TV in a press conference, and I go to see these 5 laps before the end, and I am really more afraid when I see the race on the TV. That was when I was sitting in my car. When you have a finish the flag, and Forgeri was behind me, and he said, with the hand in the sky, these 2 guys are completely crazy, because this is not for the first place, it was the second and third place. And it was really a big smile about this reflection. For me, it was one of the best race in my career. Why? Because it was between Gilles and me, and between my best friend and me.
And he said it was one of his best memories in Grand Prix racing as well.
Yeah, you are. This race was in '79, and I tell you, really, each week, I speak about this race. I think Gilles says the same of my reflection, because each time I see Gilles, it was a pleasure to speak about him. And I think it was the same for him.
Was he the fastest driver in Formula One at the time?
At this time, you have a lot of strong driver. You have Piquet, you have Lafitte, you have Mansell. Gilles was one of the best drivers at this time. I think now in Italy, you have an anniversary of 40 years of when Gilles was dead. But you think, when I listen in Italy about Gilles, you think that he's not dead, he's always present, because the people appreciated a lot the driving of Gilles. Driving of Gilles was exciting. He don't drive in a straight line. He's always in at the maximum. He uses the car at the maximum. He's always on oversteer. It's a driving, exciting driving, and the people now in Italy, in each part of the world, appreciate this type of driving. And I remember one time I was in Paul Ricard. I doesn't rain because it was raining, and Ferrari said you test the special tires for the rain. I take a motorbike and I go to see Gilles to drive in Paul Ricard in this condition. On the track, you have a double left in the first gear, quick. And I think I was there, and to see Gilles, he was completely in oversteer, and he drive with one hand, and with the other hand he said, "Hello, René." Hello. It's a completely crazy man, but very nice.
Spring's in the air, folks, a time for new life and regrowth. And if you're looking to grow or breathe life into your small business, LinkedIn Jobs can make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. The newest member of your team is out there just waiting for their opportunity, so grab them while you can. By using LinkedIn Jobs, you can tap into the world's largest professional network with more than 30 million people in the UK. All you need to do is create a post online, which takes just a matter of minutes. Then make sure you tailor your post to reach the right people. By using their screening questions, you'll be able to zone in on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. And once you're done, don't forget to add the purple #hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to let everyone know you're hiring and let your network help you spread the word. It honestly couldn't be easier. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster, and you can post a job for free. Just visit linkedin.com/grid. Again, that's linkedin.com/grid to post a job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Fast forward to 1982 and Ferrari's home race at Imola. With 10 laps to go, Villeneuve led the race with his Ferrari teammate Didier Pironi second. As ex-Ferrari man Jody Scheckter explains, back then the team had a rule to stop their drivers racing.
Ferrari had a regulation, or let's say orders. If you're 1 and 2 or 5 and 6, you don't fight unless somebody else is going to, overtake both of you. Pironi disregarded the orders of Ferrari.
Pironi continued to challenge Villeneuve in the final few laps, and Jonathan Jacobazzi was there with his family that day.
I have really vivid memories. San Marino, for me, 82, it's still something that I really think often about. For us, it began on the Thursday because Gilles was invited from my family to a press lunch that we had at San Domenico restaurants. And because he just arrived with helicopter with Pironi, asked if Pironi could join the lunch. And of course, we were happy about that. And Pironi took a friend with him that was a magician. And the magician, at the end of the lunch, have been asked by my father to do some jokes and to tell, to predict the winner of the race. And he said, in a way or another, Didier is going to win the race on Sunday. And that was just, something that we heard. It was just something to hear, to listen to. But then during the weekend, everything didn't go well for the beginning for Pironi because he had an accident on Friday. He destroyed the car. And Gilles himself spoke to the journalists. And, this has been told me by Franco Gozzi, that he was asking the journalists not to go too strong on Pironi because he needed time to adapt to the car, because also he had another accident during the winter test. So in the end, the qualifying where we got Renault in first row and Gilles Villeneuve in third place, lapping around in the same second of Prost and Arnoux, and 2 seconds behind on fourth place on the grid was Pironi, so it was really slow. So nobody could really predict that Sunday was going to happen what unfortunately happened. So I also have the opportunity to, because I'm from Modena, I always been around in Ferrari and knew many people around Enzo Ferrari. I interview all of them, during the year. So I spoke to Maini, to Nosetto, to Gozzi, to Benzi, Forghieri, and they always told me the same story. There was a deal not to race and to hold the position. So in the end, Gilles was ahead, and every time he was slowing down, Didier was catching up, and he was overtaking him. At the beginning, Villeneuve was thinking that it was done for the fans.
This is lap 60, the last lap. We are around the Tamburello, and see Pironi now. He's going through.
He's got to come down the inside. He's got him. Oh, he's going wide. Oh, fantastic stuff. They've changed places, done 2 laps running in Pironi now. All he has to do now is keep it pointing the right way. And no mistakes, because there really isn't a passing place. Unless Villeneuve can have a go up here, there aren't really any more passing places on the lap. So it looks as if Pironi's done it.
The last of the late breakers, Pironi has shown himself to be with that masterly manoeuvre on the last lap in this San Marino Grand Prix. They're through the Acqua Minerale bends for the last time. The crowd is really cheering them home. Ferrari looks as though it's going to win. Ferrari looks as though it's going to be second. Look at the flags waving. It's a long, long time since Ferrari had the double, first and second. And it looks as though Gilles Villeneuve, as they come down underneath the bridge, down to the Rivazza for the last time, is going to have to give best to his teammate Didier Pironi. But Villeneuve could still do it. He's going to try and go through on the inside. These are the closing stages. They're into the Traguardo now. And no, I don't think Villeneuve can possibly do it.
Didier Pironi wins. Magnificent race. Terrific entertainment.
Villeneuve in second place and Pironi here, the winner.
He didn't stay at the rules, at the agreement, and the last lap he took the lead and he won the race.
How angry was Gilles after the race?
Gilles was particularly hungry. I couldn't believe his eyes because, again, we were having our caravan next to Ferrari one. And after the race, I was there with my family, with my father, and he came into our caravan to sit and to hide. And my father said, Gilles, where aren't you supposed to be on the podium? And he said, I don't want to go. And my father said to him, well, if you don't want to go for yourself, do it for the tifosi. So he went to the podium, he came back, he smashed the trophy in the face of my father, and he said, I brought this back for you because mine has been stolen. And then he left, and personally I didn't see him again. He was really, really hungry, was really surprised.
He came to me at that time and said, this has happened, and Ferrari didn't back him. He was heartbroken because of that.
Gilles' friend and former Ferrari teammate, Jody Scheckter.
Gilles came to me, and then he took me up in his helicopter to Ferrari. He wanted me to come with him because he was so broken because Ferrari didn't back him after Pironi didn't follow the rules.
That helicopter trip to Ferrari's base at Maranello was to try and repair Gilles' relationship with the Scuderia, a bond that looked as if it had broken. As for Gilles and Didier Pironi themselves, that relationship was over. René Arnoux remembers.
I know very well Gilles, and I know very well also Pironi. Gilles said, I never speak with Pironi. Now it's a war between Didier and me. And I understand Gilles because I know very well the guys. It's finished. You don't have a confidence with Pironi. And it was cancelled, every possibility to speak with Didier.
That's how Gilles Villeneuve felt when he left Imola, as if his teammate and his team had let him down. Before the next race in Belgium, he spoke to his sponsor, Jonathan Jacobazzi's father.
Gilles rang him after a couple of days, and he said, look, I'm going to come before Zolder for the shakedown in Fiorano, we need to talk. So he went to Fiorano and he went to see Ferrari. And Ferrari in the end, wasn't too compassionate about Gilles' complainings because he said in the end Ferrari has won. I've won. So this was not the answer that Gilles was probably expecting. And then Gilles went to Zolder. And my father was supposed to go there, but in the end he didn't. And then happened what has happened. I mean, we know from the mechanics that were there that Gilles was suspicious against everyone. He was not really talking with the team anymore, with the mechanics even, and he was quite tough, for the mechanics to live in the box with Pironi and Gilles next to each other. So it was a difficult weekend from the beginning.
Immerse yourself into the world of Formula One more than ever before. F1 Manager 2022 is a new, fully licensed management game putting you in the role of team principal at your favourite Formula One team, ready to take on all the challenges of the 2022 season and beyond. Giving you the most authentic F1 management experience, fully licensed and brought to you in broadcast quality presentation. Drive every decision as team principal, choose how to develop your car as the season progresses, manage your staff and hone your race strategy for each weekend. Live the drama of Formula One on and off the track. Be prepared to react to dynamic events such as changing weather, evolving track conditions or race incidents. Vote on upcoming rule changes to swing things in your favour and come out on top. Launching on PC, PlayStation and Xbox summer 2022. Visit f1manager.com to wishlist the game on your platform of choice and follow F1 Manager on Twitter to stay up to speed. There was a tense atmosphere at Ferrari at the start of the Belgian Grand Prix weekend. In qualifying, tragedy struck.
The greatest unhappiness imaginable occurred before race day. In the closing stages of the last practice session for today's Belgian Grand Prix, motor racing and the world lost a much-loved and truly courageous sportsman when Gilles Villeneuve, fighting to improve his starting grid position, hit the March car of Jochen Mass. In a 150 miles an hour accident, Villeneuve's Ferrari was completely shattered and the driver hurled against the catch fencing. Tragically, heart massage and specialist treatment in Louvain failed to save his life.
At high speed, Gilles came up behind the car of German driver Jochen Mass, who was driving slowly. Mass moved to the right of the track to let Villeneuve pass. At the same moment, Villeneuve also moved to the right to try and overtake. The front of Gilles' car hit the rear of Jochen's, and Jochen Mass told me about that moment.
You look in the mirror and you see the car coming in the back, and then you move over to the right to give the fast inside lane, which is normal, it's the usual race lane. But then he was already on the right, and he just gently tapped my wheels, and he flew past me. Rear wheel, front wheel, and I thought, it happened next to me all the time. I mean, I was sort of ghosting underneath, looking at him being flung out of the car with the back plate of his chassis, from my seat. And then he flew across the road into the catch fencing. So I stopped and ran across, and I could see his big eyes. It was terrible. It was so utterly terrible that I thought, what can you do? What can you do? I didn't feel guilty necessarily, but I thought, why take risks like that? He did. And that's what basically everybody said too, because the situation with Pironi was such that he couldn't face Pironi being quicker than he was. And he was quicker then in that moment. And so I still raced the next day. I still raced. And my engine blew in exactly the same spot where the accident happened. And it was most ironic. And there I sat during the race and I watched, all the marks. And, I knew it was very, very strange. I knew him well. I knew his kids. I knew his wife. And, we were often together in Monaco. And, I liked him a lot. I felt terrible. I really did. But, it's a race accident. You have to see it like that.
Jochen was blameless in the crash. He was deeply affected by it, as was René Arnoux, who saw it happen from the cockpit of his car.
For me, it was a terrible Grand Prix. I was 25 meters behind the Mas and Gilles. And I see everything, and I said, oh, he's finished in a very bad condition. When Mas decided to go on the right part of the track, Gilles decided first to make this bend on the right side. He touched the wheel on the back and with the left wheel in the front of Gilles. The cars go directly on the sky, and he go outside of the car with the seat and the seat belt, and he go suddenly on the road with the helmet. I stop my car in the grass, and I go to see Gilles, and I said, and understand suddenly that he's dead completely. Is impossible to speak about that. He was my best friend, and I lose this day, at this minute, the best friend in my life in Formula One. Is nothing more. Sorry. Only to cry.
Did you think about not racing the next day?
No. For me, when you have the passion like people in Formula One has, it was this accident, and when Gilles was dead, it was terrible for me. But in my head, I don't said never 1 second, never 1 sense to stop to drive in Formula One because it's dangerous. No, I want to continue to drive in the same conditions that before, but after you don't have Italian lunch or a French lunch with your best friends, and this is a very, very, very strong, difficult to accept it, but it's a life.
Gilles was taken to hospital, where he died later that evening. His parents and his brother, thousands of miles away in Canada, were told the news by telephone. As the Formula One paddock and the world reacted with shock, those closest to him mourned the loss of their son, husband, and father. Then aged 9, Jonathan Jacobazzi had lost his friend and his hero.
Gilles, for me, was the very first loss that I understood. So the very first time I cried for someone that I understood that I was not going to see anymore. So, and again, he was my idol, and since then, till nowadays, he's still my only idol.
Formula One fans around the world shared Jonathan's sadness, particularly in Canada. 4,000 people lived in Gilles' hometown of Berthierville. On the day of his funeral, 20,000 came to pay their respects. His coffin was draped in a checkered flag and driven through the streets in a motorcade. Jody Scheckter walked into the church alongside Gilles' wife, Joanne.
The motorways were full, and every bridge was just full of people.
It's sort of Senna-esque. I mean, Sao Paulo ground to a halt in 1994 when Senna was killed. It seems like that is what happened in Quebec.
Oh, I think very much so. You had the Prime Minister came to the church. Everything stopped, and I think some of the interviews with the father and other people around and got the emotion of the whole country more so. But he was loved. Gilles was loved in Canada.
And all around the world, 40 years on, Gilles Villeneuve remains a racing icon. That's especially true for Ferrari fans, the Tifosi. Jonathan Jacobazzi says Gilles still holds a special place in the team.
But the legacy of Gilles, I tell you that nowadays, everywhere, if you go and ask a Formula One fan about Gilles Villeneuve, everyone, even the young generation, they know who he was. And, for instance, they probably don't remember about world champions, but they do remember from about Gilles that only won 6 races, and that's it. But when he died, he was at the peak of his popularity. And apart that, I'm really sorry because I believe that we lost the best Gilles ever.
Do you still feel his presence around Maranello?
Yes, he's everywhere. If you step into a bar in Maranello, there is a picture of him and Ferrari. Maybe there is not a picture of John Surtees that won the championship. There is not a picture of Mike Hawthorne that won a championship, or not even Alberto Scari that won a first championship with Ferrari, and it is the sole Italian world champion, to have won with the Ferrari. So Gilles Villeneuve is there, and is always in the top three because it is next to the nowadays Ferrari drivers. So today we have Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz and Gilles Villeneuve. Tomorrow there will be X driver, and Gilles Villeneuve.
The season after Gilles' death, his great friend René Arnoux joined Ferrari, and he felt Villeneuve's presence around Maranello.
A lot of people ask me some question about Gilles. Gilles is always present at this time, for 40 years after, and at this time he was completely, he was not dead. And for me, the best thing was in '83 is to stay in Ferrari with Gilles to drive all together, but it was impossible because Zolder, he finished his life in Zolder. But if you imagine it to stay all together in the same team in Ferrari, it was amazing for me. But the life was decided to have another people all together in Ferrari. But the life is the life.
Do you still think of Gilles today?
Oh yeah, sure. For me, it's always in one part of my head. This is sure, because each moment I spent with Gilles was really interesting, exciting, and this moment is always in one part of my head. Each day, 5 or 10 minutes, I am with Gilles, this is sure.
Gilles was clearly a very special man and a wonderful driver who made a big impression on those around him. It's crazy to think it's been 40 years since he passed away. My thanks to Jody, Mario, René, Jochen and Jonathan for their thoughts and memories. And please remember to send in your thoughts and stories on Gilles. I'd love to know if any of you saw him race, or better still, got to meet him. Which brings me on to what you sent in about Alex Rossi after last week's show. Let's start with this from Sam. Great episode. I watched Alex win the Indy 500 from turn 4 in 2016. He ended the victory lap parked right in front of us, and I also made some decent money that day in a friendly wager betting on him. Well, it sounds like you had a good day as well, Sam. Lucky you. I would love to have been there that day to watch him win Indy at the first attempt. And what about this from Joshua Barrero? Hearing Alexander speak about the pain within the team after Jules Bianchi passed away, it really gives us an insight that racing drivers can really care for others, even at the cost of their own chance in the car. I couldn't agree more with you, Joshua. Alex spoke very powerfully about that moment in his career, didn't he? There's no doubt he's a ferocious racer, but he's also a lovely human being. And we'll do one more. How about this from Sharon? I'm glad Alex got on Beyond the Grid. Well, so are we, Sharon. He had a lot of potential, and it's a shame that he only had 5 races in a backmarker car. I hope he returns with the Andretti team if that ever happens. Wouldn't it be great, Sharon, if he got back into Formula One with Andretti? I, for one, would certainly love to see that happen. Well, we'll leave it there for this week. Thank you as ever for listening, and thank you to everyone who wrote in as well. I love hearing from you. We'll be back next week with another great guest from the world of Formula One. Until then, keep it flat out. F1 Beyond the Grid is produced by F1 and Audio Boom Studios.